Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are. And welcome to this special Concurrent Session 1 on the 5th UNESCO Forum on Transformative Education for Sustainable Development, Global Citizenship, Health and Well-being. My name is Aurelien Decamps. I'm honored and happy to co-host this session. I'm from the Sulitest initiative, and we are sorry about that. I'm from the Sulitest initiative, and we will have two panelists for this concurrent session. I will be representing the Sulitest initiative, and Kristina Helland Strandby from the Human Rights Education Monitoring Tool will follow my presentation. So we will have two presentations of these two initiatives, and then we will ask the audience some questions about you during the second half of the session, and we will finally have a Q&A session to answer to your questions on the last part of the session. So please interact with us using the live chat, and I will start with the Sulitest initiative before giving the floor to Kristina for the second presentation. So Sulitest is an international movement launched in order to raise awareness on sustainability and to mainstream sustainability literacy. Our core mission is to enable facilitator and educator by providing online tools to make sure that sustainability literacy become mainstream. Next slide, please. Why we started Sulitest? We have two assumptions. One is that most of sustainability issues that we are facing at the moment come from human decision, often taken in a professional context by very often well-educated people holding a degree. The second assumption is that few people want to have a negative impact on the planet and humanity, but most of them didn't ask themselves the relevant question and didn't expose to enough knowledge about sustainability. Next, please. So we started Sulitest to provide tools to make sure that current and future decision makers are sufficiently aware and skilled to address sustainable development challenges in their daily lives and careers. Next, please. So the core mission of Sulitest is to raise sustainability literacy and to make sure that sustainability literacy become mainstream by providing internationally recognized engagement tools for educators and facilitators in universities and also organizations and companies, and by providing indicators and data to monitor the progress of sustainability literacy. Next, please. So how does it work? Sulitest is an online platform displaying different online tools. Our main tools is an awareness test designed to raise and map awareness on sustainability with a core international module, which is the same worldwide, 17 country-specific modules, and also SDG specific modules developed together with UN agencies. This awareness test is providing a global database on the evolution of sustainability literacy and also used widely in order to self-evaluate your current level of sustainability literacy and also to learn about sustainable development, because this test has a formative mission, providing learning statement with each question and some benchmark for the scores. We also display two different tools on the platform to enable educators, a quiz to be used as an icebreaker, and a reverse pedagogy interface to co-create questions in order to learn about the SDGs. Next, please. So the Sulitest initiative displayed this tool widely. A bit more than 220,000 people have already taken this awareness test worldwide, with 17 different country-specific modules, a strong support for UN agencies, academic networks, and professional networks, and regional committees, which are creating their own specific modules. By displaying the test, we are also gathering an important database on the current level of sustainability awareness worldwide. This is why Sulitest is reporting about the evolution of sustainability literacy in a yearly basis during the high-level political forum at the UN as a feature initiative for the SDGs. So I will now give you a glimpse on two types of impact that Sulitest have. One, using this global database to provide global indicators on sustainability literacy. And two, the impact created in universities by using the tools displayed by Sulitest. Next, please. So in order to have a full view of the type of data that Sulitest is displaying and using to monitor the progress of sustainability awareness worldwide, you can have a look to our annual report online, which is published during the high-level political forum. But just previous slide, please. Just to give you an insight about the global indicators that we have, if we take the global sample of candidates having taken the awareness test on the scope of the 17 SDGs, we can see that we have quite a systemic perspective, because we have no SDGs with a very low level of awareness, nor SDG with a very high level of awareness. This is the first indication. And the second one is that we still have a pattern in terms of sustainability awareness. Usually economic-driven SDGs are a bit better known. Previous slide, please. And the environmental SDGs also, the social part of the SDGs are usually lower score in our database. So this is the first global result. The second one is the graph that you have on the right-hand side of the slide. Education and action matter for sustainability. We can see using the survey displayed by Sulitest that being exposed to related or dedicated courses seems to be correlated with higher score at the test, and having a personal interest for having developed a personal interest for sustainability also improve the test. Next slide, please. So now I want to elaborate a bit about the impact of Sulitest on the university that are using the tools, with two main examples. One is from TU Dublin, which is a university using Sulitest tools for two main uses. One for professional development with faculty. Next, please. And also with students to promote reflection and connecting sustainability literacy to their field of study. Next, please. So what TU Dublin asks to students is firstly to take this awareness test in order to make sure that students have general awareness of the systemic scope of sustainability and the SDGs, and to conduct reflective practice for some of them in the format of videos that you can find on social network, on LinkedIn, for example, and to reflect on the change they have made in their life after having taken the test and having followed their courses or their activity, their reflection activity. Next, please. And I want to highlight one really interesting statement for Professor Lucia Walsh in TU Dublin, having conducted a poll on her cohort of students, saying that almost 80% of them said they have changed something in their life after being exposed to sustainability awareness and sustainability literacy. Next, please. The second example of impact comes from Cage Business School in France, who have used and conducted a pedagogical path using the different tools displayed by Sulitest, a quiz as an icebreaker, and an entry and exit awareness test at the beginning of the study and at the end of the program to raise awareness among its students cohort, and also to collect some indicators about the progression between the entry and the exit of the program. In between, Cage using looping the reverse pedagogy interface and also the customization in order to develop their own customized module of the test to engage faculty members to connect the global scope of sustainability to their own discipline or expertise. Next, please. One last example of using Sulitest is the European project called Qualinv for Change the Climate to broaden the understanding of sustainable development in 10 Latin America universities. Next, please. So this is a use of the customization module of the awareness test in order to engage universities to self-reflect about their strategy and the way they are integrating SDGs in the whole scope of the university, pedagogy, research, and also campus management. Next, please. Thank you very much for your attention about the Sulitest initiative. If you want to connect with us, you can do so by using the link that you have on this slide. And of course, we will have a discussion in the second part of this session. I will now give the floor to Kristina.
Well, thank you, Aurelien. And hello from a snowy 1st of December in Copenhagen. I will proceed with the second presentation before we engage in dialogue with the audience, as Aurelien already told you. So I will present another online tool, or data tool, to measure progress on SDG 47. This tool is zooming in on the human rights element of Target 47. So building knowledge and skills on human rights and gender equality are part of states' international human rights obligations. So not only should states live up to the SDGs and Target 47, but also their commitments on human rights. So with this tool, we're promoting how human rights obligations and human rights data are key when measuring progress towards Target 47 and the SDGs more broadly. Next, please. Yeah. I will elaborate on the following items. So the challenges and the needs that we address with the tool, and how the tool works, what the scope of the tool is, and then I will present some outcomes and results from using the tool. And first, I will address the challenges or key issues that has been the driver for developing this tool. Next, please. We have a huge data gap when it comes to knowing if human rights education is implemented in countries. And there are currently no systematic data collection when it comes to the status of human rights education implementation in policies, curricula, or assessment of human rights knowledge and skills among school children or teachers or any other human rights education target group. Next, please. Human rights education is not embedded in curriculum. When we're collaborating with partners globally, we often see that human rights education is not mainstreamed and systematically embedded in curriculum. And if future generations are to participate in the development of a universal culture of human rights, if they are to understand their rights and respect and uphold the rights of others, it is crucial that HRE is embedded in both national education policies and the curricula. Next, please. Further, states are accountable for human rights education implementation. As I already mentioned, ensuring that citizens learn about their human rights and the mechanisms that protects them is an obligation to the state. Next, please. And then finally, we found that there was a need for strengthening the capacity on the collection and use of human rights education data. We are not seeing state bodies that are strong in this area, and neither national human rights institutions like ourselves, the Danish Institute. And these national human rights institutions, they have a mandate to also promote, monitor, and advocate for human rights education implementation in their countries. So based on these key issues, we have developed a monitoring tool for collecting human rights education data to measure the progress both in 4.7, but also in human rights education treaty obligations. Next, please. So this is the website with the online tool and data repository. And in relation to the challenges I just presented, the aims of this tool are to identify gaps and challenges in countries' human rights education implementation. It is to support data collection for monitoring the implementation, both monitoring implementation of Target 4.7, also the UN World Program for Human Rights Education, and a range of human rights obligations under international human rights treaties. It is to create a basis for a strategic advancement of human rights education at national level. It's much easier to make recommendations when you have solid knowledge of the gaps and the issues. And then finally, it's also to foster stakeholder dialogue based on the data gaps between actors involved in human rights education and the SDGs. The data providers for this tool are meant to be national human rights institutions or state bodies, so ministries of education or other relevant stakeholders. And as I said, national human rights educations are mandated to promote human rights education, and therefore they have this unique position to monitor and advocate for advancing the implementation. Next, please. Here you see, this is what you see when you log in. So I know you can't read all of it, but this is the survey, online survey. And it has several questions. And these questions are categorized within 5 domains. So there are questions within policy, curriculum, teacher education, student assessment, and learning environment. So the tool builds on the levels that are mentioned in SDG Target 4.7, and then it's adding learning environment in line with the key components of the UN World Program for Human Rights Education. All the questions in the survey are directly linked to human rights standards. So there's a drop-down menu where you can see exactly the paragraph in, for example, the Convention of Rights of the Child or other relevant conventions. And then there's guidance on how to answer and where to potentially find data, and also some concept clarifications. It's free to use the tool, but you have to create a user. The tool is measuring only the explicit references to human rights within these 5 domains. So it's not enough that policy are mentioning global citizenship, sustainable development, democratic citizenship, etc. It needs to be an explicit reference to human rights, because we cannot assume that teacher will teach human rights if the curriculum is not explicit on this. And we have examined this in the Danish context, and it showed exactly the issues. The Danish Ministry of Education believes that human rights are embedded in the curriculum, but teachers are not necessarily included in their teaching. Next slide. So human rights education is defined by teaching about, through, and for human rights. And learners need knowledge on human rights principles and the mechanisms, and they need skills to act in accordance with human rights, and they need the attitude to support and value human rights. And then human rights education should be conducted in a rights-based learning environment. Next, please. The tool covers primary and secondary schools and teacher education. Next slide. Next. Thank you. The questions are designed with a primary focus on information available from public authorities. So it's administrative data such as education laws, policies, frameworks, budgets, etc. And the reason is to make data collection feasible, also in context where limited time and budgets are available. The focus on administrative data means that the collected data gives us insight only on the intended curricula and not the actual implementation or outcome. Next, please. Here you see a feature of the tool, a country report highlighting some of the results from the data collection. So in order for data to be effective, we need to be able to communicate it easy, understandable to non-experts. And these reports can be used as a dialogue tool to foster evidence-based dialogue with relevant stakeholders. Next, please. The data is available online. And you can explore and browse in the data, and you can filter among responses and countries. This enables users across regions, among countries and globally to use it. But currently the website contains data from 7 countries that have piloted, and we're collaborating with more countries, and hopefully soon more will be online. Next, please. So we have asked 11 national human rights institutions to pilot the tool and collect data in their country. And the pilot has shown how relevant human rights education gaps has been identified in countries, implementations, and that needs to be addressed through policy and programming development. And we also have some great examples on follow-up initiatives. So one outcome is stronger stakeholder collaboration and dialogue on human rights education among key stakeholders. Stronger awareness and knowledge on human rights education among stakeholders is key. For instance, in Ghana, the Ghana Commission on Human Rights Education concluded based on the data collection that there was a need to develop a human rights education policy. And the Commission, they initiated a committee also with representatives from the Ministry of Education bodies and representatives responsible for SDG implementation. And together they have developed a national action plan now on human rights education. A second outcome is awareness of ongoing policy reforms and curricular development, both in Kenya, Ghana, Ethiopia. They became aware of ongoing curricular reforms while collecting the data, and that have provided them opportunities to give input and for some also to actually influence the curriculum. And lastly, we see progress on involvement in SDG mechanisms in order to use the data for the SDG monitoring and reporting. And for instance, in Kenya, where human rights education data will be part of the upcoming VNR reporting. Next. So one last slide. It is just to say that we're also developing guiding materials on how to actually collect data and use the data. So we have guidance on curricular development for human rights education, and we also have publications and e-learning courses on how to use data strategically to actually gain impact and changes in policy. Next. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much, Kristina. Yes, please. We will now move to few questions on Slido, please, because we want to know a little bit more about you, the audience. Can we move to Slido, please? Okay, so you can see on the live chat that you have the Slido code in order for this session. And we will first ask you to let us know what your main occupation is. Okay, we have education professional and state representatives, the main part of the audience. Yeah, it's still improving.
Well, this is nice and active. 17. Just okay.
Okay. Very happy to see some education professionals here, and also a good representation of civil society and state representative.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Should we take the next question and then?
I think we can move to the next question. A question that is actually coming from me to you, the audience, considering the systemic vision of the 17 SDGs. How sustainability literate would you say you are?
Looks like we're dealing with experts here.
Yes, we have an expert audience given the scope of the conference. It's it's a confirmation, or it's reassuring to see that we have some sustainability expert, not only considering the interconnection between the 17 SDGs, but also linking the 17 SDGs to their action. Of course, a good way of testing your own sustainability literacy would be to to try the test of Sulitest among other initiatives, in order to have an idea of the systemic scope of the SDGs and your own current sustainability awareness. We could probably move to the third question.
So this is the last question, and it's relating to the human rights elements, and whether you are aware that human rights is a part of the SDGs. So it's like 2/3 are aware and 1/3 are not aware. I'm very happy to see a lot of you are actually aware of it, and I hope that the other 1/3 will now be aware that including stakeholders that have data on human rights, not necessarily only on human rights education, but human rights in general. So also civil society organizations, and especially human rights institutions like us, to actually involve and use all the knowledge, insights, and data within this within the SDG. Yes, should we thank you very much for participating in this, in our Slido.
And we could probably move into the Q&A time of the session. So as you can see, you can interact in the live chat, and we will be happy to answer to some of your questions if you want to post them in the live chat. Maybe if I may take a bit of time to start, because I already answered to one question in the chat from Tim about about growth and the SDGs. So as I was mentioning, firstly, about Sulitest and the Sulitest tools and database, they are based on a Sulitest matrix, whose goal is to display the systemic perspective of the SDGs, and you can find that online with the link I provided in the live chat. The idea is to have a global view of planet boundaries and ecosystems on planet Earth, and then the impact of human constructed systems such as economy, education, culture, water, energy, and so on and so forth. How do we transition toward more sustainability, and what is my role as an individual and an organization? This is a way to try to integrate this systemic perspective. As of the debate around growth, I know well the debate in the context of the SDGs. I think there is already a shift from growth to prosperity, which is a good thing, prosperity and social progress. And what I like about the SDGs is this systemic nature, as for example, was modeled by the Stockholm Residence Institute between economy so as a subpart of society, as a subpart of the biosphere. So the multiple connection between economy, society, and the planet boundaries.
Thank you. I can follow up. There's a question for me in the chat. Julia asking if we investigated the situation of teachers and if they feel ready to teach about human rights education. And no, we didn't investigate the outcomes with this tool. We did in Denmark. We did a study on the teachers and how they actually are teaching human rights education or not. And the conclusion was clear that they're not feeling comfortable teaching, or at least most of them. And also that if they teach human rights, they tend to put an international perspective on it. So instead of making it very concrete and, children's rights, child's rights perspective in the national countries, we do have issues in Denmark as well. It kind of become a very global focus. And I was also very excited to see yesterday that there was actually a new study presented also concerning teachers and their how confident they feel teaching human rights. But with the tool, we do investigate whether human rights are included in the teacher training programs. And in many countries, it's not systematically embedded in the curriculum. I hope that answers the question.
Just
there's one last question.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, it was just one last question for you. Is using the Sulitest tool free?
Yes, so the 3 tools that I presented are available free of charge online for anyone, whether you are a university, an organization, a company. So those tools are available for free. Only the premium access, which allow the customization that I mentioned, used by Kedge, for example, or by the Qualinv European project. The customization comes with an annual membership on the platform, but you can very well raise awareness, collect data using the tests, the quiz, and the looping reverse pedagogy interface for free online.
Okay, maybe I can actually just in the last minute, there's an extra question from Rebecca. If teachers are uncomfortable teaching human rights, what action options can be done to make them both competent and confident to teach human rights? At least for us, we're working directly with national human rights institutions on also trying to build capacity among trainers in teacher training institutions, so training of trainers, and making sure that the capacity is there at the educational level. So it is definitely not enough to just put it in the curriculum. We need to make sure that there's a capacity to actually teach these subjects. I think we have to end this session, but feel free to contact both me and Aurelien for further questions. And thank you very much for joining our session and for all your questions. And I hope the discussions will go on beyond this session. Thank you very much, and a good day to all of you.
Thank you very much.